Hello everybody. In this video I will introduce Vuex and what it is. So we already know how to work a little bit with Vue.js. We already know how to move between pages with the Vue router. We know a little bit about components and how the data element work and some methods in there. So we're going to go a little bit more deeper and we're going to introduce Vuex. Vuex is another element with another plugin on top of Vue.js at the same as Vue router is. That's pretty much it have a state management. What is state management? It's just a centralized place where we can actually have all the information that all the state of the application itself where it's going to be rendered. It is important when you have a small application, sometimes the state management doesn't need it. You can actually send information from one component to another. For example, to props, we were doing that before, where we actually be doing through a prop will send a specific element or a specific object to a child element, and vice versa. In order to do from a child to a parent, we need to do an event, emit an event. We didn't saw that part yet, but I can introduce you just in that event. But and then I will introduce Vuex, and we'll see the benefits of actually how to use Vuex in that element. So I will create example. So let's actually do Vue create Vuex test. I like it. Oh, something important. There's a new version from my CLI. So it's good to actually to install it. Let me cancel this with Ctrl C. And it's a really good practice to have you always the latest version. So let me do yarn global at view forward slash CLI. We must reinstall it. And this what I'm going to do is pretty much update my CLI version. So it's important to have it there. I was reading that I believe the version 4.2 it's fixing some vulnerability. So if you're already there, you're fine. If you don't, you can actually update like this. Okay, now we have the latest one. Now I can do Vue create Vue text. Perfect. And we're going to select manual features. You want to enable the router, Vuex, and the CSS preprocessor. We're going to maintain Babel and linter format. So we're going to say yes to the history mode. We're going to use the dark SAS, ESLint plus creator, lint to save, and in dedicated config files. And we're saying that no, we are not saving anything. And we'll leave this actually running, and we'll wait for a couple of minutes to actually finish. And now that it's actually finished, I will just go to the project and let me just do td Vuex test and let me actually run it to verify that everything is okay. Perfect. Everything is rendering and it's supposed to. So let's actually do some kind of cleanup before we proceed. I will open my Vuex test, the one that we just created right now. Perfect. Some of the cleanups that I want to start doing is about the configuration that I like. So I will create, let me close this one. I will create a file. It's going to be .reader rc.js. This is just because personal preference. I don't like to have semi, I just like to have the single quotes. So I will delete those. My ESLint, what I'm going to be doing there, and I already have it saved over here. Pretty much here at the end. Something like that. Perfect. Now that I have those, I will go to my views. Pretty much I will select everything from my about and paste it in my home. Let's save it like this. And we have the home page and the about page. Something really simple. Just because we're doing like that, let's actually delete the component element. Sorry, the hello world, we don't need it. And let's remove the logo because we're not using it anymore. What else in application? Let's leave this as it is. Yeah, I believe that's enough. And the about and the home page is working. Perfect. So let me actually go to my home page. Let me create a script element in JavaScript and call my component to home. And I will create a data element called counter. And the original value is going to be 0. This will allow us to have something like this. A simple counter. Because we are initiating the value with 0, if we change it to 5, that's going to be a 5. So let's leave it actually at 0 and keep it like that. After this, let's actually do a couple of, let's do a div and a couple of buttons with a plus and button. That's actually not disabled, the minus. And those buttons, what I'm going to do is going to change pretty much a counter. We need to create a couple of methods. Methods are functions that are going to be run there inside our application. That function doesn't need to return something. So we're going to add the add one or the add. I'm going to do just this counter plus plus, and we're going to add another method because it's going to be in the same level as the add because it's another method. Subtract, and this, the only thing we're going to do is this dot counter minus minus. Perfect. Now we need to do the buttons. Whenever we click this, the first one, we're going to add, and we need to bind the click event on the second one with the subtract. As simple as it is. This will allow us to increase the number and decrease the number. Perfect. Let's go now to the about page. What is the application? Let's go to open the about. And let's do the counter is, and let's do counter. And let's do another bit data. Sorry. First a script, name about, and let's do our data or counter 0 by default. So something happened here. So we are in the home one. Increase this to 10. We move to the about page. Our counter is not showing there. And it's not showing because I have a typo. There you go. But the counter is actually 0. If we're going back, we lose the property code is what it was the value that was handled. Why? Because we are not saving that value anywhere. So one way to actually keep track with this value is how in a small application it does. Let's say that we are 4. I want to go to the about page. I want to see that the counter stay at 4. And I want to return and I want to continue working with that number. You see that is going to be the scenario that we want. How we accomplish something like that in Vue.js? Well, is we need to pretty much, when we request, we need to map this element, the counter, to the application itself. And over here, we need to inject it in a router view. And depending where we're injecting, each component needs to render it. And when those elements actually do something about it, those need to be pretty much processed. So as you can see, we're talking about complications in here. So there's a different way, and that's how one stage management system. And the best one that Vue.js have is actually called Vuex. So if we go to see our main.js, we're going to see that we have our view element created, be rendered in the application ID, but we had a store in there, and that store is getting saved inside our view element. In our store, what we have state, mutation, action, and modules. And actually we can have getters too. We can do something like this. There you go. So what we're doing here, it's a way to save a state, like to save pretty much like variables. Getter is how to get those variables and render it wherever we need it. Mutation is something that is going to change the state. It's going to mutate the state, that we call it that. Action is something that's going to trigger a mutation. And module is when you have a separation from modules in your store, when you have a really big store. I'm not talking about store, I'm not talking about a shopping store, I'm talking about a state store or the Vuex store. So we actually don't need the modules right now. I'm going to delete it. And we're going to change the way that we're doing things a little bit. So the state is pretty much like the data, it's where we are going to save the information. So we're going to create a stable counter, it's going to be a 0 by default. Then we are going to do our getters. We can actually get a counter from the state directly, but it's susceptible to changes in an improper way. So it's a really good practice to have like a getter. This getter is just something like get counter, could be. That's pretty much like render this information or send this information without actually to need to mutate or change the state by itself. And we can do some properties like filtering, we can do some reversing, stuff like that, without changing the original state. So that's why, again, it's actually important. And we're going to see probably in the next video a little bit more about those. So get counter, we need to read our state, and this is just a pure JavaScript. And what we're going to return is our state counter. Completely simple. The get counter will read the state, and from the state we are going to return the counter. That's it. On mutation, we will call changing state, changing counter, sorry. And this is what is going to be needed is you're going to get the state, and it's going to get the value or payload. Sometimes it's called payload too, but that is going to be the value that's going to be changing the counter. And the only thing that's going to be doing is state.counter plus equal value. That's it. So whenever we send here, it's going to be added to the counter. If we add a positive number, it's going to be added to the counter. If we add a negative number, it's going to be subtracted from the counter. It's a simple function that changes the state directly. So the mutation is to change the state, and the getter is from get from the state. That's pretty much how it works. Now, an action, we can actually have two actions here. So we can have the add one, for example, and this one will have a context. And this context, the only thing that we're going to be doing is committing something. So actually the context is going to be, that's pretty much the whole element, and we're going to commit a specific mutation. And that mutation needs to be sent as a string. In this case, my mutation is called changing counter, but because we are expecting a value, we just hardcode one value here. So add one is going to pretty much doing that. Something really cool about the ES6 is that we can actually have this function to be a little bit shorter. It will instead of getting the context, we just get in the commit section of the context. So we can actually do something like this. And we can get rid of this before. And it's going to do exactly the same. It's a little bit cleaner. If this doesn't make sense, this is just pure JavaScript. That's it. It's a function that have a parameter that is going to be inserted and then going to return a specific value. That's it. And then let's do another one called subtract one. And as you can imagine, we're going to do this. A simple state management. And what is beneficial of having something like this? Let me show you. So let's go back to our home and let's remove this data element. We don't need it anymore. And instead of that data element, we're going to use a computed element. Computed element, a computed element is a function that is returning a value and is taking trace of that changes of that value. Something that is happening actually outside the scope of this function. So in this call, we can actually call the counter, and we're having the same name in order to have it here. And we're going to return from our store getters get counter. And that one is still right there as it is. If you go to the about page, that is actually happened the same way. Let me copy this one. And let me just override my data. And my counter is 0. That's perfect. If I go back to my store, I said that my initial state is actually 3. You will see that my counter here is 3. But in my about page, it's also 3. Why? Because we're keeping one source of information. And this is really important. It's easy to track and easy to maintain. So let's move forward, keeping that one. Now, what we need to do, we will need to change our method. So the add method is actually not going to increase the counter, not directly. It's going to go to the store. I'm going to dispatch an action, and that action is called add one, I believe. And the subtract is called subs1. What we're doing pretty much is dispatch this action, start the action. So what we're going to be doing is something as simple as the same thing. As you can see, it's working. But not only that, if we go to the about page, that value is preserved. It will return because the home is the one to actually have ability to change it. I will increase it for a little bit bigger, let's say like 15, and we go back to the about, it's keeping track of that change because it's getting from the same route, from our getters. So Vuex is a state management to have one source of truth for the state of the application or for the information of the application. In this case, what we did, we specified the state. A getter is just to get that specific state. A mutation is going to change my test state, that's why we're adding a value and change it. And the action is just committing different mutation. And then from our specific components, we are dispatching those actions. That's pretty much the whole idea. We can have some changes in there and we can actually do some different way to work with information, but this is a really good practice, have it that way, and in order to have a control everything that is going to be changing. One last thing I recommend to everybody to have is to go to the Chrome store, web store, or the Firefox store and look for Vue Dev Tool. I recommend actually to everybody to install it. So you get Chrome, Firefox. You can actually have it like this. In my case, I have Firefox, so I downloaded this one from here. It's already there. And what it's going to be doing, it will allow me, if I do right click, inspect element, open my console, and at the end I have my view console, which allow me to see the different elements. But for example, this one is allow me to do and see the changes. So whenever pretty much we're doing, we are keeping track of that. As you can see, we can actually save in the information, and we see over time what are the values that we're saving. At the same time, that we're able to identify different components where we're getting. As you can see, the computer counter is 15, and we can see that it's going to be changing. And in the route, we can see the different elements for the route. So it's a really good debugger for a Vue application. So please go everybody download the Vue DevTools, and depending on your browser, it's pretty much the one that you need to have. I hope that everybody liked the video. Happy coding, everybody.